Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for our next session, Sriram Samu. Sriram is the VP of Customer Technology at Kroger. In this role, he works closely with product management, user experience, merchandising, business operations, marketing, and other teams to create a best in class omni-channel shopping experience. Sriram is responsible for customer experience and merchandising experience applications, including the various Kroger banner sites, pricing, promotion, payment, customer, and item management solutions. Sriram has an extensive background in the retail industry and in software engineering. Prior to Kroger, Sriram was a VP of engineering at Walmart Labs. He helped grow the Walmart Labs team in Bangalore from 30 people to several hundred people. Before Walmart Labs, Sriram worked at eBay, where he was a senior director of development for search and later the GM of the eBay India Development Center. Sriram also worked at Oracle Corporation. Sriram is an experienced technologist with extensive background in retail, e-commerce, databases, and high-traffic platforms. Speaking with Sriram are Karthik Ranganathan, co-founder and CTO of Yugabyte, and Kannan Muthukarpan, co-founder and president of Yugabyte. The conversation will focus on Sriram's experiences with building data architectures that scale and Kroger's journey using YugabyteDB to power business-critical microservices used by millions of customers. Kannan, over to you.
Thank you, Sudha. And it's my pleasure to welcome Sriram, whom I've had the opportunity to know since my Oracle days. Sriram, maybe I would love to start by talking about your career trajectory that led you to the role you are in today. You were in the database team at Oracle. You were leading one of the core teams there. Perhaps we could start by telling us, which team, which product you were working on, and just give us a little bit about that Oracle journey of yours.
Hey, Kannan. Hey, Karthik. Hey, Sudha. Great to be with you guys. It's exciting to see the growth of Yugabyte and the opportunity to work with you. Oracle seems like a long time ago, Kannan, and I think, if I remember right, I joined Oracle as a software engineer. I think like a principal software engineer. The first project I worked on was the Oracle 8i. I think it was called the one that implemented partitioning. And after that, worked on many different projects, including some of the shared cursor work, which is really key of how Oracle works. Temporary tables, Oracle, internal triggers, and also some work in the AQ area. So mostly enterprise class, where you really, really focus on getting things exactly right, worry about scalability, worry about errors, worry about everything that happens on the side. And it was an exciting area because that was a time when there was like the big three or big four of databases really beating up each other on relational database technology. A long way. We've come a long way since then, when there are a lot more options in the databases nowadays.
Yeah, fantastic. So, and then you went on to work at the web scale technology companies like eBay and Walmart Labs and so on, and you switched from you switched hats from building databases to being one of the key consumers of databases needing scale and so on. So how did that journey look like? How did those apps evolve? What kind of demands did this app stack place on the infrastructure tier?
Yeah, no, great question. So working at Oracle, I felt that I was like far removed from the customer. And that is actually the point that triggered my journey into being on a more customer-facing application. Keep in mind, around that time, the internet and the e-commerce on the internet was starting out. And it seemed like the right time to leave, because I think the thing that triggered my journey was I was trying to work on an Oracle, I think it's like Oracle 8.2 or 3, when 8.I was going the first customer ship like 18 or 20 months later. So I figured at that time I should be on something that is kind of meeting the customer's needs much faster. Ended up going to eBay. eBay was like one of the biggest e-commerce sites at that time and still is. And really I worked on the search technology. So it was a kind of a natural evolution for me going from a database technology to work on search. And initially at eBay, when I was there, search was mainly in memory. So we built our own in-memory solutions, massive servers running on the back end, 128 GB memory, very expensive, right? But there was also another thing happening. eBay was growing phenomenally. When I joined eBay, there were like 17 million items listed on eBay. And by the time I left the search team, there were over 250 million items. So we saw the scale increase, and the cost of maintaining these large server farms became too expensive. We kind of went into more like a grid, the 32 GB off the shelf hardware that we can buy, and built our compute based on that. A lot of emphasis on customer experience, of course, because search is the funnel through which most customers start shopping. So tremendous focus on the customer experience, get them into the funnel so they can go through and complete their shopping. Search runs at scale. Like if you think about the number of searches we do, we did at that point when I was there at eBay, tremendous number of searches every second. And that continued growing while I was there. So, and then adding more capabilities in search, like we had some advertising, so we had to bring in ad revenue in there. We did the browse capabilities. eBay had its own store, so we had to build search within a store. So lots of additional capabilities that came in, which really kind of changed me from just focusing on the backend database technology to how do I build experience on top of a database and using database as a tool and focusing on the customer experience.
That's awesome, Sriram. Great journey. So maybe it's a good time to ask you, like you have been in the first part of your career journey building databases, and then after that you went over to the other side using it, right? How has your perspective of databases changed, from the other side? Like ever since you've started using them as an app builder, what do you think about how has the notion changed and so on?
I think the interesting thing I think about is the most important part of building an application is really getting your data model right, and then understanding what the usage patterns are. It's very easy to build an application. It's very easy to launch something. But when you start building at enterprise scale, the way eBay was when I worked there, or Walmart or Kroger, it's really saying what are the use cases? How do I lay out my data the right way so that can meet the needs of the enterprise? So we started out mostly with relational in the early days because that's what was the most in the most commonly used database system at the time. And later on, there's a lot more systems that we were dealing with. But what happened on the web is that there are a lot of applications where we don't need the asset properties of database. So it became more like saying, how do I provide speed? And there are cases where you can even lose the data. Like for example, if you are tracking customer click streams, you can afford to lose clicks here and there. You can't lose like lots of data, but you can afford to lose some data. So it became more like, how do you have incredibly fast write, incredibly fast read, but may not worry about the asset properties as much. So then it became like, as an app builder, I'm looking for some people who are really, really good at understanding the data, building the database schemas, tuning them, and making it performant. Whereas the bulk of application engineers we hire, they know how to write SQL or any other queries, but they are not into tuning as much. It is really hard to expect every developer to know full stack expert and understand all aspects of database. So for now, when I look at them, it's like I look at databases and say, can it be tuned very easily? Can I get a few people who understand this database and the data modeling very well? And then be able to bring in more application developers who can leverage the skills of these few people who are really, really good at the database part.
All excellent points, right? Like all excellent points. I think we're going to come back to these points a little bit later, but let's switch gears a little bit for now. Let's talk about Kroger, right? Can you talk about Kroger's ambition as as a retailer? What are you trying to achieve? Where are you trying to go as both a retail powerhouse and as a digital company, right? And remember, I think I saw the hashtag anytime, anything, anytime, anywhere, right, on your profile. So what does that? So just can you talk about just the overall...
Let me give you some information about Kroger. I don't know how Kroger is not very well known across the country because we operate in different banners. So our brand, if you look at them, is fresh for everyone. We are in the food business, and our purpose is to feed the human spirit. Our vision is to serve America through food, inspiration, and uplift. That is Kroger. Like those three, the brand, purpose, and vision, that is what Kroger stands for. We operate in more than 2,800 retail stores across the country, coast to coast, and the second largest retailer in the US and the nation's largest grocery retailer. So Kroger is big, right? We operate, like I said, about 20 banners. Like Kroger itself is one, Ralph's, Fred Meyer, QFC, Smith's, Fred Meyer, Harris Teeter, Mariano's. These are all various brands. So if depending on the part of the country that you live in, you know some of these brands really, really well. We operate in 35 food processing plants and 42 distribution centers. So large in manufacturing, large in distribution. And we have our revenues for 2020 was $132 billion with a 116% growth in digital sales. So the last few years has been tremendous growth in the digital side, but Kroger also has been growing. And we are the 8th biggest retailer in the country based on the ranking by the eMarketer. So our opportunity, our growth is really in the food business. We want to serve the customer how they want to shop, where they want to shop, and what they want to shop. We carry more than 1 million unique products, and we average over 200 transactions per second. And we work with 30,000 suppliers and manufacturers. So like scale is huge. Anything you touch at Kroger, you will know that the scale is really, really big. And our delivery, like our e-commerce is over $10 billion right now, and we doubled last year. So when you add all these things, really what you're looking at, the scale, like a lot of retail stores, touch points with customers, a lot of e-commerce growth, and really getting on to the new model that people are coming to. And COVID has been a game changer, right, in terms of how people view shopping. So it's a changing marketplace, changing economy, and a changing customer behavior that is really driving the growth for Kroger. And we want to be in the center of everything, right? So the where we have been focusing on is how do we make it convenient for the customer where you want to shop, how you want to shop, and what you want to shop. So initially when I joined Kroger, we were focusing mainly in-store experience as well as getting people to come and pick up groceries in the store. And then we have expanded significantly from there to be able to do both delivery to your home, or we can do the ship to home directly. So there's a lot of changes happening. So we want to be there where the food is. We want to meet the customer where they want to shop, how they want to shop.
Yeah, Sriram, love the mission and how Kroger as a company is solving these and really from a customer-centric perspective, like and really trying to improve the consumer experiences. So really love it. And having worked with Kroger and the team over the last couple of years, it's been amazing to see that journey happen live. Maybe reflecting back, if I'm not mistaken, when you joined Kroger and about 2-3 months after that, we connected again. I think you had reached out. So curious to hear, at that time, what did you view as the main challenges at the data tier for Kroger? Why was YugabyteDB interesting to you?
Yeah, so when you look at Kroger, Kroger is give or take 130 plus years old. There is a lot of legacy systems that have been built over the years. So when I came in, it was really like the anything, anytime, anywhere was the motto that we were going after. And the other thing we talk about internally is a seamless experience. We want the customer to have a seamless experience, whether they're shopping online, in the store, or maybe remote using a mobile when you are away from home and shopping. So when you look at the data that we have at Kroger, it is really a variety of data, that the data that runs the enterprise, the data that is used by manufacturing, the data that is used by our supply chain, the data that is in the store, and then online. So there are multitude of database systems. Like we have pretty much all kinds of databases ever invented, like from the IMS to DB2 to Oracle to Informix, SQL Server, you name it, and many variations of NoSQL database. So when we started looking at this, when I started talking to Yugabyte in my early days at Kroger, it was like really saying, how do we build that seamless experience for a customer? And it is really hard to build that great experience when you have so many disparate systems, some of them that are legacy systems. So our goal has been within the digital experience team is that how do we bring the data into a format that is easy to serve to the customer and make it blindingly fast so that the experience is actually very appealing. But we do have to integrate it a lot with the legacy system. So one of the challenges or one of the interesting approaches we've been taking is how do we take legacy data and the new data and combine them together in a way that we can present that to the customer. So Yugabyte, I think that's where you guys came in, is like saying, how do I take this data and kind of put them in a store that allows me to build the seamless experience that will meet the future need.
Yeah, so maybe what were some of the core requirements that were important to you? I mean, like for example, Postgres compatibility or open source, multi-cloud. On these aspects, Were there some that were more important to you than others? If you could share some of that perspective.
Yeah, I think many of these actually tie in with each other very closely. So when I joined Kroger, it's actually, we were running on-prem, but we had talked about going to the cloud. And then as you look at all the legacy data and the applications that we have, it really was a big challenge to be able to kind of do like maybe a lift and shift and just go to a cloud. So the journey we started out was saying that, hey, how do we get organize our data in a way? Going to the cloud is actually just not getting the data, moving the data or compute to the cloud. It's actually transformation of the teams. So we had to figure out like, how do we train the team, the engineers, the product management and operations to run on the cloud. We had to decide which clouds do we use? And that is again, like best of breed. So we work with a lot of partners, and sometimes you find some partners work on one cloud and not the other cloud. For example, search, we are partnering with a company. They run their search engine with all the machine learning and AI on GCP. So currently our search is running on GCP. So we make sure that we have the tools and the capabilities to run on GCP very efficiently. Now we are moving some of our compute and data over to Azure. So at that point, we kind of made a decision saying we will use a multi-cloud environment, which whether it is on GCP, on-prem, or in Azure, we have the same set of tools, the same set of databases, the same capabilities, so that it is not like, oh, here I'm running on Azure, I'll do a certain set of things. I'm running on-prem, I'll do a different set of things. And I'm running on GCP, I'll do a different thing. So we try to standardize so that there is one way of running our applications, one way of managing databases, one way of managing compute, and the tooling that comes with it, which kind of makes it easy for us to bring in new developers. It allows us to train people much easier. So the training plans we are putting in will also be to cater to that, saying same set of tools, how you run them. Postgres plays a role in there because, again, as a standard, it allows us to potentially even run different Postgres systems on different clouds if we want to. So we can choose the best of breed in any cloud as we see fit. So the flexibility is what I was looking for. At the same time, some standardization so that we can run similar tooling and similar applications. And when you look at applications like item or pricing, it is potentially needed by every application inside Kroger. And given where we are right now, some of them run on-prem, some of them run on Azure, and some of them run on GCP. So I almost want to be able to run some core services like item, pricing, customer in pretty much all the clouds, and be able to keep the data reasonably synchronized so that it is just, I don't have to worry about, am I running this application on GCP? How do I make sure that it is performant? How do I make sure the latency of other calls are very minimal? So I should be able to deploy my applications where I want to, when I need them to.
Yeah,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember that in our early discussions, that when you looked at a couple of other solutions, to one of the things that I think drew you to Yugabyte was also the level of Postgres compatibility and the fact that it works with your standard drivers, your Spring Boot framework, and all of that, right? So, and it's sort of like your teams are very comfortable building apps. There's not that much learning curve at all to try and use Yugabyte. Karthik, you were going to say.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think this is great, right? Like, I think our point of view, right, when we started working with Kroger's, we hold you guys in very high regard because we think you're pioneers in a few different areas, right? Like the one that we talked about, like PostgreSQL compatibility. It's very important, but it's quite natural, right? Like I think the point is, like, people's familiarity brings it. So while it's a very important point, there are some points that went almost, like, in our perspective, against what was the norm at the time. So I'm going to ask you about 2 or 3 of those, and I think that is like very fascinating to see, and especially the way the world and the industry moved and it played out exactly the direction you guys were thinking, right? So we started Yugabyte obviously around 2016, right? So back around 2015, 16, I mean, I know you said Kroger is like 100 years old and is even predated. I mean, we won't go that far. We just go the last 5-6 years, right? So 2015, 16, it was mainly on-prem, no real thought about cloud. That's what we heard from most enterprises in 2016 as well, right? In 2017, 18, you folks were trying to move to the cloud. But pretty soon out there, you were laying the foundation for a multi-cloud world right there, right? But this was different from what we heard from most of the other enterprises who were like, look, it doesn't matter. One cloud is good enough. We're just going to go there, right? Now, 2019-20, multi-cloud really became real in the world, and you also realized it inside Kroger as being something very important, right? Now, in 2021 and beyond, it's starting to go towards the hybrid as well, and I think that's something that you were looking for as well. Like otherwise, you could have gone for a fully managed service on both things, but you wanted it to be hybrid, and this is the part where it starts getting connected to open source and so on, right? So, could you talk about the vision of how it started, how you felt at the time, how it's played out in retrospective? Could you just talk about that journey?
Yeah, sometimes you get lucky, right? So like, we could have gone and said, we're going to lift and shift everything to the out to one of the clouds, when I came in 2017. I think part of the challenge is people mostly underestimate the challenge of deploying to a cloud, public cloud, and then running them in a cost-effective manner. Because if you just take a lift and shift and move the application over to the cloud, it could really be expensive. I don't want to say it will be expensive. It could be really turn out to be very expensive. In general, I would say running on-prem would be the cheapest, but it doesn't give you certain flexibilities. Though that is changing slowly, like, with Kubernetes on-prem and many of the same solutions available on the cloud as well as on-prem, I think we can debate like what should you run on-prem and what should you run in the cloud. So when we started out, it was also like, let's get the architecture right. So we have been kind of going down this, there are a couple of internal applications. In my prior life, both at eBay and at Walmart, we built massive platforms which are very opinionated and had to go in one direction, and that is the only direction that you can build. And as I came to eBay to Kroger, I think we also took a slightly different approach. We said, we are going to establish general architectural patterns and guidelines. We talk about Kroger Commerce Platform, which will enable commerce within Kroger. We're talking about domain modeling, which says, how do you define domains within Kroger? And so as we went through this journey, it became very apparent that like rushing in and just getting a lift and shift is not the right thing to do. Let's get some of the architecture right. And it was painful because we had to deal with all the limitations on-prem, and everybody is saying we need to be on the cloud, we need to be on the cloud. But he said, let's take some baby steps, learn how to get the Kroger application platform and Kroger Commerce Platform right, then started building some tools on managing the cloud. And then we started saying, how do we, by the time we had actually figured out what is the data schemas that we want, how do we lay these out in the database, how do we group a certain set of applications together? And that kind of led us through this journey saying, get the tooling right, get the schema right, get the data modeling right. And then we are actually able to accelerate much faster than we previously thought. And it is exciting to see the journey because we know that, we build on Yugabyte, we build the shopping list, which is the first application that went on our cloud. We worked with our partner, we're running search on GCP now. And then we are starting to run many of our applications on Azure. And we are also running some applications on Kubernetes on-prem. So I think it is still going to be a work in progress over the next few months, but we have a very aggressive plan beyond that. Once we get the foundations, once we get the common patterns established, how we can move faster in terms of building out the applications and then running them where we want. So those architectural principles, not being very firm about how you do it, but having maybe, if you want database, understand what your patterns are, and these are like the three choices that you have. Pick one of them. Don't go and pick a new pattern unless you absolutely have a different use case that we are not meeting right now. But at the same time, there is no central architecture team that is going to come and tell you, you're going to pick this database, put it here and design it like this. No, we actually give the teams a little bit of flexibility, but we also hold them accountable with the metrics that we have. Does that answer that question? I think it's a long story, but it's a journey that we had to come through.
Actually, this is one of the hardest things, right? Like the vision of at what point do you really bet in the future versus build for the present, right? Because there's always two camps about realizing value quicker and the other one about laying the foundation for real value in the future. It's more of an art, right? It's not really a clear one way or the other. But the other thing that I think you touched on, which is fascinating, is the lift and shift, right? You said like that would have been a lot easier, but you didn't do it, right? Like I think and we distinctly remember back then, like you folks were like very clear about how you wanted to refactor your applications, get the most, move to microservices, et cetera, right? Like, can you talk about that? Because most of the other enterprises at that time, especially, right, were going let's re-platform, right? Let's just move to the cloud and then we'll figure out what to do with it because, and we'll figure out if there was ROI or something. And specifically because this cultural shift was harder, right? Can you talk about staying in the game, even though it was hard, and what the curve looked like to get the value out of it over time and so on?
Yeah, I think we all have been in software long enough that any temporary solve that we make becomes a permanent solve, right? I think that is one of the challenges. But I do want to clarify, right? It's not like we didn't do lift and shift at all. There are certain applications we just lift and shifted. There are a lot of bad jobs that run at Kroger. I mean, just like in any enterprise, there are a lot of bad jobs that generate files and so on. And we did lift and shift them because they were running on a SQL server on-prem. We could just take them, put them on a SQL server on Azure and run the bad job. And those are things that we did out of the box. I think on the customer side, I think that is where our focus was. We are balancing new features and developing the underlying technology. And it was kind of saying, we will continue to develop the new features, keeping in mind our Kroger KCP, Kroger application, Kroger Commerce Platform, those principles in mind, build them on-prem. And we really kind of explain the technology changes to the business team so they understand the value it brings. And they can see the one-to-many multiplier, right? And that's what we say, like when you build architecture right, you build it right, you suddenly see 4 use cases that can just use that application that gives a multiplier. So that is one of the things that we focus on fairly extensively, saying, how do we multiply the benefits of building platform? And I think that there has been a turnaround in how the business views technology. And they truly see like, hey, like you build item once, I can use it on customer-facing applications, or I can use it on associate-facing applications. You build search in GCP, it is used by all the tools within Kroger. So similarly, like we are kind of going down the path where we say that taking some foundational work, building some foundational work, building it the right way, and then suddenly you start seeing the benefits. So I feel we are at the tipping point that in the next few months, we'll suddenly see all our applications built the right way, running either on Azure, GCP, or on-prem. That will really unlock all the potential that the business is looking to leverage. And if you look at the capabilities we are building, and there's so much more that we need to do, that is, I think, where we see the value. So a lot of explaining, a lot of showing what platforms do and how the foundations really accelerate technology. I think that's where we've been working on over the past 3.5 years.
Yeah, we were really energized to see the level of enthusiasm from the Kroger teams in fundamentally revisiting everything. Like you talked about the data model, right? They were completely open-minded to saying, hey, this is a big step we are taking. Let's use this step. Migrating from the existing system to new is hard, but let's not take the easy route. Let's take the step to figure out what's the primary key going to be. How do we leverage the indexes? All of that, right? Like a lot of good thought. Like they were open-minded to almost reset the design from level 0. And I think that that has paid off. And
maybe on those lines, Kannan, maybe if you want to add a couple more points about our journey on our side with Kroger, right? that might be interesting also for both Sriram and for folks to listen to, right? How we saw the journey.
Yeah, so maybe a question there, right? Like I'm always impressed by some of our early customers and early adopters, like and one thing I always say is like, what gave you the comfort? Something, when we were like less than a 30 or 40% company, something still gave you the comfort that, hey, we want to take this path, right? That's not a small risk to take. And you've been, design partners with us for some of our early features. Like when you made the commitment, but to the time you went production, some features were not yet done. Like backups wasn't in place. The Azure support and platform wasn't in place, but something led you to the conviction. So would love to hear how you, what led you to that and how you prepared for it, like, to that path.
And then it's you and Karthik. Yeah, I'm trusting you guys, right? No, I think it is partly the team, partly the technology you're building, and partly your willingness to work with us, right? So we knew going in that you were not production ready to go launch at the enterprise level. And if you look at the applications, we kind of test and learn and understand what we are building and what we are launching. So if you look at the initial journey, we knew certain capabilities were not there. And we knew we had to find some applications that is fairly low risk from our point of view to be able to go test it. And as you look at some of the people who worked with you, Lou and Mahesh and a few others who worked with you very closely, they were able to work with your teams, tell you what is important. And you guys were quickly very responsive. Like the number of times I send you text messages, Kannan, when you were on the plane one time and saying, you had the team jump in and take care of things. So we knew we were on a journey to bring a lot of the enterprise on Yugabyte, but we also started slow. We went through the testing and learning, saying what worked, what didn't work. And when we had performance issues, your team jumped in, and many times it was like what we were doing rather than what was an issue with the application. So that is again a learning process where we learned how to use some of the new database technologies that are coming in. So I think it's been a good partnership in my mind, is that you guys have been very responsive. Our teams have been very willing to go and test out things that were maybe not ready for prime time. And we started out in 2018, but over time, I think that's where we are now, is I think at a point where we have the capabilities and you're willing to make enhancements as I think, you mentioned backup. I mean, that's something we absolutely need. And the manageability is the other one that I think as we go forward, I mean, I would love to run Yugabyte on-prem, which we don't do today, and to be able to bring that on-prem so that I can have the same configuration, same database, same everything running on-prem, Azure and GCP, so that it is, again, a much better developer experience. Eventually, at the end of the day, if the developers become productive, they can build innovative products faster. That is going to help the company go faster.
This reminds me of, Kannan, when Kannan and I, we were at Facebook building, HBase and all the databases at Facebook, when we were also, us and the entire team, actually, not just us, and most of that team is at Yugabyte now, but we were also responsible for running the database, right? So it was a similar journey where you partner with the application side, which was the same company in that case, but nevertheless, and you really understand their needs and really subscribe to what the issues are, and it's kind of a joint front, right? So, but that's amazing to see that, we're able to do this with somebody like Kroger and both sides coming together and really working out. It was just amazing. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, we started out by shopping list, which is not a transactional system, but it's something people use extensively. And then, we are doing the other areas like enterprise, the customer, where we store the data of all our customers. That is enterprise class system. And that is just going live right now. CART is next, and there are many, many more applications that are in the pipeline. I think all of which will really kind of test the capabilities. And I'm sure if we find issues, you guys will be there to kind of help work with us and figure out what is wrong and fix it.
Awesome. And what does the journey ahead look like for you? So you said, like, these are the few. How do you think about the future 1-2 years from now? How do you think about what capabilities you need and where you need to be and so on?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where Kroger is going right now, like we have a partnership with Ocado where we are launching the Ocado sheds. We launched one in Monroe, which is in Cincinnati area, and one in Groveland, which is in Florida. So going into Florida, it is really like a new area for us. We don't sell in Florida right now, so Kroger is new there. Similarly, we are going to launch Ocado sheds across the country in many locations, and that'll again bring us to new customers. We have been focusing heavily on our marketplace, which is a third-party seller selling on Kroger. That went live a few months ago. We are planning to scale that, work with some big partners to bring a lot more assortment that brings the customers to Kroger. And then the next big phase is how does it truly become an omni-channel? I think omni-channel has been tossed around for a long time. But I think, I think that's, again, I think we are at a point where we are building, kind of saying, how do we take, so we had in-store experience, we had off the store online experience. Now I think we are bringing both together. So for example, like we launched a smart card in some of the stores where we are testing out. So it's like you can come in, add things to the card, check out and go without really talking to any associate or going through checkout. We are testing drones. Now we got to do that, right? So there is some technology that we are building over there to test out drones in certain areas. So that is going on. And we are testing many new partnerships. Neuro is one, and there are other partnerships that we work with to bring in new ways of shopping and new ways of delivering the end order to the customer. We partner with Walgreens to, like, you can place an order at Kroger and pick it up at Walgreens. All these require our technology stack to be very flexible, right? So the underlying foundations, getting that right, building these clear architecture models that allows us to add one more use case very easily. Those are things that we are truly focusing on right now, because that will open up this true anything, anytime, anywhere, because we can increase the assortment. We will have more stores. We'll have more ways of picking up the item. Maybe it's a delivery, maybe it's a Walgreens, maybe it is Neuro, maybe it is a drone delivering your order to you. I think those are things that we will really focus on. And then how do we continue to improve the customer experience? Like, how do we improve the self-checkout when you go to a store? Can we make it very easy and simple for you, simpler than what it is right now? New payment capabilities that we adopt in the store. So all of them, I think, is what we are focusing on right now.
Amazing. So I think all of this is obviously like amazing stuff, right? Like really groundbreaking and like novel. But can you talk also about, like, I'm sure a lot of this is also informed by, or in part at least, by user behavior and what you're observing. Like, so Can you talk about, like, for example, how user behavior is shifting, and even things like phenomena like COVID and all of that coming up, right? Like, can you talk about how that has actually changed, or like it influences some of your roadmap and things you do, and specifically with respect to what are the new capabilities, maybe like this self-checkout thing, that type of thing, or what are the efficiencies you need to deliver both as a business and as on the infrastructure side, right?
No, that COVID has driven a lot of innovation. I know that, and somebody are kind of joking like COVID is the CIO of 2020. So we had to drive a lot of changes within our experiences as COVID went in. And one thing we found, like a lot of new customers started shopping at Kroger, and these were not the typical. It was not the shoppers that we had. It's a new brand of shoppers. Typically, a lot of them were older people who didn't feel comfortable going into a store, so they suddenly started shopping at Kroger. We also found people like wanted less contact with people, like, so we started saying, like, how do we enable that? So we ended up, like, in the first month or two of COVID, we ended up implementing a lot of new features. Like, one example being, like, when I'm coming for a pickup, I can say, like, hey, like, I'm on my way, and then when I'm there, I can just, on my app, I can say where I'm waiting. They'll come and load the items for you, and you get an e-receipt. Very simple, no touch anywhere. Or when an order is delivered to your home, again, you can say, like, just leave it outside or leave it where it can be picked up. Don't knock on the door, don't touch anything, so I don't need to worry with you. We made a lot of enhancements on our pharmacy application. Like, when the COVID vaccination started, we were all in saying, how do we work with the government to make sure that we bring in the vaccination capabilities, like allowing you to book time, not for one shot, but for both the shots, and scaling it out for running, the tens, like we had multiple off pharmacy location where we ran vaccinations. So all of these required us to go and do, build new capabilities. Kroger is very data driven, right? So if I look at one of our strengths as being, like, we have a loyalty program. I think about 90% or 95% of people who shop at Kroger are part of the loyalty program. So we understand what the customer is shopping, how they are shopping, what their interactions are. So we have a very strong data science team in one of our divisions called 8451, and they help drive the personalization. Like, what promotions are targeted to you? What are the items that you see first? How do we make that experience better for you? A lot of personalization that goes in to make this experience better. So very strong focus on customers that are data driven, implementing capabilities that the customer is looking for during COVID. Last year was pretty exciting, and it was pretty hard, but it was so exciting because every day when you come into work, you knew that you were making a difference and you were helping both our community and the customer and the associate who worked in the store.
Yeah, I think we can all vouch for it on the customer side, but you never think about, at least I never stopped to think about just how much it takes on the other side, right? Like, each one of this is a feature and a complex feature and rolled out quickly at scale, always, right? Just incredible, right?
Yeah, we used to have a daily morning meeting at 7 or 7:30. Now it's kind of memory, but it's like, let's talk about what do we need to do this week, and we were rolling out features. Like, it became so agile and nimble. We were rolling out features almost by the week or by the day sometimes, and you go them. If it doesn't work, we sometimes took it off and put something else there. How do we help the customer and the associate? Because a lot of the applications we did were in the store to make the life of the associate easier.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, I think COVID has really put the emphasis on the elasticity that's needed from every layer of the stack. And, in some sense, on the database side, that's what we've been trying to do, really make an elastic database that can meet the growing demands of the business, right? Maybe would love to get your perspective on, like, what do you think from a database perspective, like for Yugabyte, what do you think is your success criteria with respect to Yugabyte, and what are some lessons? How could we be a better partner to Kroger? Any advice would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think we've been working with you from the beginning. So some of them are already come out, right? So one is certainly the capabilities that are in there, like feature completeness, Postgres compatibility, and so on, which are really saying, hey, like, we can easily get people to start using them without having to go through a huge learning curve. The second is, as you work with enterprises, the manageability is really important, right? The backup is one example, but really the ability to understand, how do we tune if we need to tune? How do we understand how do we get the metrics that allows us to tune the system? I think when The third one I would say might be like run everywhere. I think which are already there. Like I want to be able to run them. Given our multi-cloud approach, on-prem cloud, hybrid cloud approach, I would love to see any of the tooling that we work with has an equivalent in every cloud so that I don't need to go rebuild my applications. Some of the other ones would be like, I think as you can look into the future might be, there is still a lot of legacy data sitting around in older systems. And as we truly become omni-channel and every piece of data gets in front of the customer, some of the legacy systems are not meant to scale. So how do I, if there are ways that I can easily get the data out of the legacy systems into a Yugabyte or a new modern database and build applications on top of them, I think that'll be like to me, a huge win for us, saying quickly be able to move from the legacy systems and get on new systems and build experiences on top of them.
Yeah, that point hits home, Sriram, meaning like, and it's, you could say it's like instilled in us, like, meaning not just the database being, cloud agnostic is great for the developers, but equally important is the control plane and the orchestration experience, orchestration layer experience should also be cloud agnostic. How somebody runs, manages should look no different in, say, if you're running on-prem or Azure cloud, and we've taken those as guiding principles. Yeah.
Awesome. I think the other part that you mentioned, Sriram, is also coming up quite a bit, and we're starting to think about it, which is how do you, free the data from existing systems that were not fit for purpose today, right? Like, and how do you bring them over with ease? And that's something that we are starting to think about also and starting to collaborate. So that would be another,
yeah. If you want to collaborate, talk to us. I think we can figure out like how we can look at some of the older systems and truly modernize, right? I think the challenge now for me is that we have the customer side mostly on modern technology. We are looking at the merchandising side as well as the associate side. Some of them are modernized already, but if we can modernize everything and put them on modern systems, the innovation that we can unlock would just be significant. I think what we can do for the associate and the customer would be just incredibly like a winning combination for me.
Awesome. Great to hear. And cool. Any other final thoughts or advice for us as a company, as a product? Anything else?
I think we talked about the product quite extensively. Like, I would love to continue partnering with you, finding out new opportunities to bring in your capabilities. I mean, obviously you have a great team and a great product. I know you're working on open source. I think that might be something I would love to partner at some point, saying how do we also start open sourcing some of the technology we are building, some of the tools that we're building. Would love to work with you and open source. And seeing if there are new opportunities, like if there is new technology, like I don't know if you will get into analytics and so on. That's again something that we are really interested in. So you have the data layers. If you start going into other layers, I think that'll be very interesting. Search and that system is something that is really important, because I think Google has made search the way people look at data. So eventually I think that many more applications would kind of have a search interface rather than any other interface that we build today. And those are things that I think that's a challenge for us every day. As you look at associates and merchandise, like our category managers, right? I would love to give them an experience that is as simple and as fast as a Google experience or a customer-facing experience. Like how do they set up pricing, promotion, and so on in a very simple way? And that's what we're working on. The underlying data technology will make it even easier for us to do that.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Sriram. It was really insightful, really great, and fascinating also to see what happens on the other side of what most of us take for granted, right? Like, hey man, like of course it's COVID, somebody dropped it off, great, but we don't think about what happens on the other side. So thank you for that.
No, great talking with you. I think it's been awesome to see your journey. And then of course, Kannan and I knew since for a long time, and it's great to see you guys build a great company. And I think let's continue partnering and let's figure out how to, if there are new opportunities for us to work together, and wish you guys the best. I know like you're ramping up your team. I see new people joining Yugabyte every day. So good luck to you, and we'll have a great partnership.
Yeah, I really want to thank you, Sriram, for taking the time and being on this journey with us from early days, and look forward to many years of working together closely in future. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. See ya.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.